In the 1970s, I was frightened into falling into the water by a vicious dog at the entrance of the village. When my life hung by a thread, it was Shen Jingqing who jumped in to save me. Before long, rumors about us spread through the village. And his fiancée broke off the engagement because of it. With no other choice, Shen Jingqing gritted his teeth and married me. After marriage, he hated me for breaking up him and Gu Shiru, and never showed me a kind face. Later, he even found a love letter I had written to him many years ago in my luggage. So he became even more convinced that I had ulterior motives. And even my falling into the water was a deliberate setup against him, to get back at me, without my knowledge. He used his identity as my husband to give away the job that should have belonged to me to Gu Shiru. She became a private school teacher, with Shen Jingqing backing her all the way, enjoying a smooth rise and eventually becoming a professor. I, on the other hand, worked the most ordinary grassroots job and lived out my life in mediocrity. Over the years, I watched coldly as my husband treated another woman so well, finding her a job, paying for her studies, buying her warm clothes when she was cold, wiping away her tears when she cried. After my heart had been hurt so much that it went numb, I suddenly began to regret marrying Shen Jingqing. I have imagined countless times that if I had refused his marriage proposal back then, whether I would have lived a different life. Late at night, after I once again fell asleep with tears streaming down my face, unwilling to accept it, when I opened my eyes again, I had actually returned to the time when I fell into the water that year. Ji Mei, quickly grab my hand. A sharp girl's voice rang in my ears. I snapped back to my senses, and the weightlessness from falling down the hospital stairs turned into the sinking sensation of drowning. Through the splashing water, I saw my friend Gu Shaoqin from her younger years, anxiously reaching out to me, but she was still several steps away from the shore. At that distance, there was no way I could have touched even her fingertips. I'll go get someone to save you. Hold on. She got up in a panic and ran off into the distance. It was a field where quite a few villagers were working. Only then did I realize that I had actually been reborn back in the 1970s, before I had married Shen Jingqing. That day, I went out with Gu Shaoqin to do the laundry, and a stray dog that had come out of nowhere barked furiously at me, even trying to lunge at me and tear into me. Overcome with fear, I dodged in panic. In the confusion, an unknown force from somewhere shoved me into the water. In my previous life, Gu Shaoqin also cried out for help to the people in that field just like she was doing now. But among that group of people, besides the elderly, only Shen Jingqing knew how to swim. He rushed to the riverbank and saw me choking and suffocating from the water. Without hesitation, he jumped in and saved me. This was supposed to be an act of kindness. But no one could have imagined that this decision would end up binding us together in endless entanglement, making us lifelong bitter enemies. After Shen Jingqing saved me in my previous life, I was so grateful that I used all my savings to buy him a city wristwatch. Not long after, Gu Shaoqin suddenly ran over to inform me. Jimei, this is bad. People in the village are saying you and Shen Jingqing have an improper relationship and are messing around with each other. When I heard the news, it felt like I'd been struck by lightning. In this era, open relationships were not yet fully accepted. In more backward places, conservative, feudal attitudes still persisted. Being accused of moral misconduct was a very serious matter, let alone the fact that Shen Jingqing already had a fiancée. People passing through the village all pointed at me and looked at me strangely. Some even insisted that they saw me by the river, kissing Shen Jingqing mouth to mouth and embracing him in an indecent manner. Others said that I hadn't fallen into the water and been rescued at all, but had been carrying on a shameless affair with Shen Jingqing in broad daylight and, while doing something disgraceful, had accidentally fallen into the river. And the watch I gave him became proof of all of this. The rumors spread more and more viciously, and the torrent of spit seemed almost ready to drown me. Back then, I was only around 20, naive and inexperienced, young and immature. Faced with something like this, I panicked completely and could only cry with red eyes. And Shen Jingqing's situation wasn't any better. I heard that his fiancée, Gu Qianru, came to his home with her parents to call off the engagement, causing a huge uproar. Shen Jingcheng and Gu Qianru were classmates and deeply in love. They were just one step away from marriage. Yet such a change suddenly happened. He endured the risk of being accused of harassment and tried desperately to win her back for a long time. But Gu Qianru's resolve to break off the engagement was as firm as a rock. No matter how much we tried to clarify it, hardly anyone believed us. Where there are many tongues, even gold can be melted. Facing these rumors, we felt as if we were being fried in a pan of boiling oil. During that period, I would get up every night to pack my luggage, crying as I thought it over. I figured that at worst, I would just leave here and find some place with no one around to keep living. But not long after, Shen Jingcheng actually came to my door with betrothal gifts. After all the upheaval during that period, the liveliness in him was gone. Even his handsome brows and eyes were filled with a faint weariness. The moment he saw me, he said, "Ji Jimei, since things have already come to this, why don't I marry you?" He asked me, "Would you be willing to marry me?" Was I willing? For the decades that followed, I kept regretting that I had answered incorrectly back then. Perhaps if I had refused him at the time, my life would not have been so bitter. I wouldn't have had to toil in the fields for years, only to finally return to the city and watch helplessly as my job was taken away by someone else. It's not as if they're clearly married, yet her own husband is attentive and protective toward another woman, leaving her to keep an empty room alone. It's not as if she keeps overestimating herself by comparing herself with Gu Qianru, only to end up ashamed and withdraw each time. Among the three of us, the two people who clearly have a marriage certificate are us. Yet I feel more like the mistress. We argued, cried, and made scenes, but in the end, what defeated me was nothing more than the disgust in Shen Jingcheng's eyes. He said, "You know full well how our marriage came to be. The person I've wronged the most in my life is Qianru. This is what we owe her." I broke down. What did I owe her? Wasn't she the one who insisted on breaking off the engagement? Wasn't it you, Shen Jingcheng, who came to my door with the betrothal gifts and asked to marry me, from beginning to end? I never once intended to destroy your relationship, but because of that love letter I never even managed to send, he sentenced me to death, not even leaving me a chance to turn things around. He left me alone to struggle in this loveless marriage for so many years, watching him turn away time after time, his back as he left so ruthlessly. I choked back tears. "Shen Jingcheng, I really wish I had never met you in this life." His departing footsteps suddenly froze. I couldn't see his expression, but I heard him say in an almost indifferent tone, "If I could, I would also wish that on that day by the river, I hadn't saved you." It was only at this moment that I finally believed Shen Jingcheng had not been speaking in anger. While I was struggling in the water, Gu Shaoqin pulled Shen Jingcheng and walked this way. "Brother Shen, hurry." Ji Jimei fell into the water. "Go save her." In his past life, Shen Jingcheng had not hesitated at all to take off his clothes and jump into the water, afraid that even a second's delay would put me in danger. But at this moment, he hesitated, looking at me struggling in the water. His gaze was heavy. "There should be a distinction between men and women. This may be inappropriate. We should find a girl who can swim instead." Gu Shaoqin was so anxious she was practically stamping her feet. "Oh my, and you're still worrying about that at a time like this? Saving her is what matters most. Are you really going to stand by and watch her drown?" She tugged Shen Jingcheng toward the riverbank, her voice booming like a loudspeaker. The commotion naturally drew even more people over. Watching more and more people come over, Shen Jingcheng's expression grew even darker. His brows were furrowed so tightly they could have crushed a fly. He shook off Gu Xiaoqin's hand, strongly resisting her attempt to drag him off to save someone. "If I say it's inappropriate, then it's inappropriate. I'll go find a woman who knows how to swim to save her right now." After he finished speaking, he quickly ran off, leaving Gu Shaoqin standing there, dumbfounded. She was so anxious she was jumping up and down. "Who can swim? Ji Jimei is about to drown. Hurry up and save her." However, no one responded. Having heard the entire thing, I sneered inwardly over and over. It seems that Shen Jingcheng has been reborn too. So what he said wasn't just anger. He truly hoped that I would die and never again become the stumbling block standing in the way of his marriage to Gu Qianru. A wave of sorrow surged through my heart. Under Gu Xiaoqin's astonished gaze, I slowly swam to the shore, soaked to the skin. I climbed out of the riverbank and calmly headed home. Gu Xiaoqin ran over, her eyes wide open. Jimei, you can actually swim. Why did I never know that before? The discomfort in my body left me with no energy to explain to her carefully. I merely brushed it off with a couple of perfunctory replies before hurrying back without delay. On the way home, I happened to run into Shen Jingcheng, who had turned back after leaving. He was walking briskly, and by his side was indeed a sturdy woman. The woman kept nagging away, blaming him. A drowning person can't afford to wait. It's been so long already. That person is probably not going to make it. Under my mocking gaze, Shen Jingcheng immediately froze in place. He stared at me in a daze. Yes, a drowning person cannot wait. In the few minutes he delayed. If I were still the Jimei from my previous life who couldn't swim, I would already be dead by now. I said nothing and brushed past them. Shen Jingcheng, fortunately, you didn't save me this time. Because I feel the same way. I don't want to have even the slightest bit of connection with you anymore. Thank heavens for giving me the chance to set things right. When I got home, I hurriedly took a shower and changed out of my soaked clothes. The first thing I needed to do next was find the love letter I had written in a moment of impulse. Back then, when our group went down to the countryside together, I spotted Shen Jingcheng at a glance in the crowd, towering above the rest like a crane among chickens. He was handsome, refined in manner, and never complained or dragged his feet when working. He was always eager to help anyone in need, so it was only natural that I quietly fell for him. At the time, I didn't know he already had a fiancée. After I found out later, I was dazed and lost for a while. And then I forced all those thoughts down, but I never expected that this love letter, written in a moment of madness, would later become evidence he used to condemn me. Shen Jingcheng questioned me with this love letter countless times. He was certain that I had deliberately and meticulously approached him, staging the fall into the river to tarnish our relationship. He accused me of having no shame, of using my own honor as a woman to scheme against him. No matter how I explained it, he wouldn't listen. I wanted to say it had only been an accident. I wanted to say that I had truly been on the verge of drowning at the time. Who would joke with their own life? But no matter how much I explained, it all sounded pale and powerless. At this moment, without the slightest hesitation, I threw that love letter into the brazier in the courtyard. Since all of this was a mistake, it should not have existed in this world in the first place. What are you doing? Shen Jingcheng strode over. After seeing clearly what I had burned, his pupils suddenly widened. Jimei, have you lost your mind? How could you burn the love letters you wrote to me? I looked at him expressionlessly. Why not? If I remember correctly, those seem to be my things. Right. How I deal with them is my freedom. He blurted out. But this was something you gave me. Shen Jingcheng's words came to an abrupt halt. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then he questioned me again in the accusatory tone I was familiar with. Jimei, you were reborn too, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be treating me like this. You really were lying to me in my past life. You can swim, yet you pretended for so many years, deliberately made me save you, and ended up causing Shiru and me to break off our engagement. I never expected that, even without being married. He could still speak to me like this so shamelessly and from so lofty a position. Shen Jingcheng, what right do you have to question me? In this life, it seems we have no relationship at all. Besides, can you go one day without falsely accusing me? In my past life, I almost choked to death in the water and had to get 4 drips at a city hospital for a week before I recovered. No one would be so stupid as to joke with their own life. What? Do you think your charm is so great that I would rather not care if I live or die just to gamble on whether you might possibly save me? A complete stranger. I looked straight into his trembling eyes and said, the reason I've learned to swim now is that during the decades I was married to you, there wasn't a single day I didn't regret it. Back then, why didn't I know how to swim? If I had been able to climb back up on my own, would I have ever given you the chance to torment me later? He probably hadn't expected me to say something so heartless. He froze. It was something he had never even considered. Because in my past life, no matter how I explained it, he never believed me. He was convinced that when I fell into the water, I had deliberately lured him to save me. He thought I had deliberately ruined his reputation just to marry him. So he hated me, resented me, and in our marriage he hurt me with needles that couldn't kill, but could still stab me until I was covered in blood. Only after I really pulled myself out of the water on my own did he have no choice but to believe what I had said. I truly would rather have never met him at all than let him save me again. The young man's face was ashen. He seemed barely able to stand, but still forced himself to say whatever you want. In any case, in this life, don't ruin the relationship between me and Qianru again. We're going to get married and correct the mistakes of the last life. After speaking, he stared at my face, as if waiting for something. Perhaps he was waiting for me to break down, hoping to see me angry and jealous. But I didn't let him get his way. I simply smiled and offered him my blessing. Is that so? Then I wish you both a long and happy life together, and may your hearts remain forever united. Late at night, I used the kerosene lamp to read the approval form for educated youths going down to the countryside spread out on the table. It looked like an award certificate, encouraging us to heed the call and go to the countryside to build it up. Through it, I saw all the events of my previous life. I spent half my life in a mediocre job, busy and numb. I was busy every day, but my heart felt empty. As someone who has loved reading since childhood, I found no sense of fulfillment in my work. Once, I also considered furthering my education. I want to take the graduate entrance exam and reach a higher level, but every time I pick up a book, I'm met with Shen Jingqing's ridicule. He laughs at me for overestimating myself and even thinks that I want to take the graduate exam just to compete with Gu Xieru, because by then, she had already been admitted to one of the top universities in China. Sometimes, even I can't see myself clearly. Is my desire to study really for me? Or, as Shen Jingqing says, is it just for comparison? The household chores were just as much a burden on me. Shen Jingqing's mother was especially difficult to deal with. My father-in-law had been hospitalized for years, and she took care of him personally. After I married into the family, it seemed like she had finally found someone to blame. She would call me to the hospital every few days to look after my father-in-law, while she went off to play mahjong and enjoy herself. When I finally had a day off and wanted to read at home for a while, she would wail and cry that I was unfilial, saying I was making excuses not to take care of my father-in-law. At that time, I wanted to repair my marriage with Shen Jingqing, and I was afraid he would misunderstand me. So, resigned to it, I went back to the hospital to clean up my father-in-law's excrement and urine. Later, my time was compressed to the point where I could only read and study at work, until I collapsed at work from overexertion. When I woke up in the hospital, a whole crowd of relatives had come. They weren't there to care about me. They were there, on Shen Jingqing's and my mother-in-law's behalf, to lecture me. They said I didn't know how lucky I was, that I had gone crazy insisting on taking some kind of graduate entrance exam, throwing away such a good life for nothing and making a fuss. They said I should be a good wife and homemaker for Shen Jingqing, take care of everything at home for him. He was in the rising phase of his career, and once he was promoted, I'd have anything I wanted. Why would I still need to take a graduate exam? And back then, I was actually so confused by their back and forth talk that I really gave up on continuing my studies and willingly stayed behind to take care of the household for him. I really don't know what evil possessed me in my past life. Looking back now, I was simply utterly foolish. Some men will not be moved to tears of gratitude just because a woman gives up her own future to be a devoted wife. In fact, later on, they may even come to despise her for being dull and unremarkable. And most women are always confined by family, and for the sake of being called a good woman, they foolishly give up their right to pursue a better life. In my past life, I was just like that. Shen Jingqing always said that I was jealous of Gu Qianru. That's right. I really do envy her. Not because she received more of Shen Jingqing's favor, but because she could break free from the constraints of family, pursue her ideals throughout her life, and ultimately sit in the position she once looked up to, in the silence of the deep night. When I thought of the regrets from my past life, I only felt my heart beginning to boil. Since heaven has given me a chance to start over, I will no longer let myself down. The next day, I found the village chief. After hearing why I had come, the village chief looked surprised. Xiao Ji, you mean you want to switch to another village for the construction project? I nodded. Is that okay, village chief? I'd already formed a grudge with Shen Jingqing, and I knew he would achieve great things in the future. Now that he had memories of his past life, he would only rise faster. I wanted to stay as far away from him as possible, so that once he became successful, he wouldn't take a dislike to me and make things difficult for me. The village chief scratched his head in embarrassment. Well, I've never handled something like this before. I'm afraid I'll have to submit an application to the higher-ups. Why don't you go back and wait for news for now? I'll let you know right away once there's a result. I nodded slightly, a bit disappointed. Actually, I had already anticipated the outcome. After all, young people were sent to the countryside according to assignments and followed organizational arrangements. There probably weren't many cases like mine, where someone wanted to change places. Under the blazing sun, I went back to the fields to keep working. When I ran into Shen Jingqing, I treated him as if he were air. I walked past him without even glancing to the side. Several times, I saw him open his mouth as if he wanted to say something to me, but when he met my cold gaze, he swallowed it back down. Gu Shaoqin came over to me. Her neck was soaked with sweat from the sun, and she clicked her tongue toward a certain spot. Jimei, Gu Qianru's luck is really good. Why don't I have a fiancé like Shen Jingqing? I followed her line of sight and saw that many girls in the field were all staring at Gu Qianru with envious eyes. It turned out that while Gu Qianru was working, Shen Jingqing had come to see her carrying iced mung bean soup. He felt sorry for her and took over all her work, letting her sit on a stone nearby and rest. During the break, Shen Jingqing took out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from Gu Qianru's face. A handsome man and a beautiful woman. They made everyone else envious. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but whenever he was being gentle and attentive toward Gu Qianru, his gaze would always drift toward me, intentionally or unintentionally. I let out a cold laugh. They thought it was enviable, but all I felt was disgust, because that mung bean soup was something I had taught him to make in my previous life. For the next period of time, I put my resolve to stay away from Shen Jingqing into action. He might have thought I was playing hard to get, but only I knew that I truly did not want to repeat the same mistakes. Even though in my past life I had genuinely liked Shen Jingqing, those sincere feelings had already been trampled to nothing by that cold marriage. What I hadn't expected was, I wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble came looking for me. That morning, I was still fast asleep, in a daze. I heard the door being pounded so hard it seemed to shake the whole house. A man's voice, thick with fury, shouted, "Ji Jimei, get out here." I hastily threw on my coat and opened the door, only to see Shen Jingqing's face, blazing with rage. His eyes were dark and brooding, tinged with a hint of hatred, as if he wanted nothing more than to bite me to death. He roughly grabbed my wrist and strode toward the radio station. He yanked me so hard it hurt like hell, and I snarled, "Shen Jingqing, what the hell is wrong with you? Let go of me. Let go of me now." He ignored me, and as if afraid I would break free, he tightened his grip on my wrist even more, making it feel like my hand was about to be broken. Tears fell before I even noticed, and a sense of humiliation surged in my heart. It wasn't until he dragged me to the broadcasting station that I understood Shen Jingqing's intention. Over there, a large crowd had gathered. There was the village chief, the villagers, and Gu Qianru, in the crowd. Her delicate figure was like a tender willow swaying in the breeze. Together with her soft sobbing, she looked even more pitiful and endearing. Shen Jingqing hurried forward, took Gu Qianru's hand, and said, "Qianru, I brought Ji Jimei here. Hear her explain it yourself. I really didn't jump into the river that day to save her. Gu Qianru turned around and ignored him, her shoulders still shaking. The village chief looked at her, crying like a pear blossom in the rain, and was at a loss as well. He cleared his throat. Comrade Gu, if you have any grievances, just say them out loud. We'll stand up for you. Only then did she speak. Village chief, I have only one request. I want to cancel my engagement to Shen Jingcheng. The man's eyes turned red the moment he heard this, and he cried out in a broken voice. Why, Qianru, are you abandoning me again in this life? He gripped Gu Qianru's shoulders and insisted on getting an answer. Gu Qianru said aggrievedly. That day, Ji Jimei fell into the water. Gu Shaoqin said she saw you jump into the river to save her. And you even gave her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. You held her in your arms. You had physical contact with her. What does that make me? Your fiancé. I can't stand this humiliation. I want to break off our engagement. My gaze turned to Gu Shaoqin in the crowd. She avoided my eyes, afraid to look at me. Shen Jingcheng explained. I didn't save her. She swam up on her own. As for mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, that's even more absurd. The girl broke free from his embrace. Many people clearly saw it. I really asked those villagers who had actually seen it, and they flatly denied it, saying it was just hearsay, something they'd heard from others. The only eyewitness that day, who watched the whole thing through, was Gu Shaoqin, yet she went around spreading rumors. Before I could even settle accounts with her, I saw Shen Jingcheng grab me and drag me forward again. Ji Jimei, tell me how you got out of the water that day. Don't lie, or I'll make you regret it. Looking at how aggressively he acted, just to sever ties with me, I became even more certain at this moment that I really no longer loved him. In fact, I felt nauseated. I said calmly, I can swim. Why would I need him to save me? You're lying. Shaoqin said you can't swim at all and have never dared to get in the river. Comrade Ji, since you stole someone else's fiancé, you should have the courage to admit it. Gu Qianru glared at me. Her pitiable, delicate appearance won her quite a bit of sympathy again. I immediately felt contemptuous gazes. These people had once again taken me for someone with improper conduct. A woman who seduced another man's fiancé. Looking at the river not far away, I had an idea. So I said to everyone, come with me. In front of everyone, I jumped into the water without hesitation. 1 minute, 2 minutes passed, until the ripples on the water's surface stopped. Someone cried out in alarm. Oh my God, she won't have drowned, will she? Shen Jingcheng, standing by the shore, clenched his fists, and his breathing faltered for a moment. A little while later, I finally emerged from the water and then skillfully swam back to shore. By then, my clothes were soaked through again, and my hair was plastered to my face, making me look extremely disheveled. I said coldly, do you believe it now? I can swim, so I don't need him to save me. And I would never degrade myself to the point of joking with my own life just to seduce a man. You people who believe the rumor are truly ridiculous. No one raised any further objections, and many people felt red-faced and ashamed for having doubted me earlier. The village chief shouted twice. It was all a misunderstanding. Disperse. Everyone. Get back to work. At night, under cover of darkness, Gu Shaoqin sneaked out of her house furtively. She didn't notice, and I quietly followed behind her. When we reached a deserted place, I heard her say aggrievedly, Sis, I really didn't lie to you. Ji Jimei couldn't swim before. Who knew she'd climb back up on her own that day? And in the darkness, the person who met up with her turned out to be Gu Qianru. Gu Shaoqin was a local. When I first came here, I heard her say that her third uncle, who lived out of town, had a daughter. She was studying at a university in the city, was very pretty, and was the pride of the whole family. So they were cousins. They hid it really well. Her pretty face was flushed with anger as she lashed out at Gu Shaoqin. You idiot! What kind of lousy idea was that? Now look at this. I can't get my engagement to Shen Jingcheng broken off. And Wenhua is still waiting to marry me. What am I supposed to do? My heart stirred. Xia Wenhua. In my past life, Gu Qianru married him. Back then. Xia Wenhua was the team leader of the educated youth group. His family was wealthy, and he was sent here to gain experience. In my past life, Gu Qianru and Xia Wenhua clearly had no interaction at all. Yet in the second month after breaking off her engagement to Shen Jingcheng, she married him in a hurry. Now it seemed this had long been planned. Even the vicious dog in my previous life must have been arranged by Gu Qianru and the others, while Gu Shaoqin was responsible for luring Shen Jingcheng over to save me. Afterward, they would spread some rumors. If nothing went wrong, things should have developed exactly as they did in my previous life. She would use this as an excuse to break off her engagement with Shen Jingcheng, and then marry into the Xia family in a higher position. I clenched my teeth inwardly, wishing I could rush up and slap her hard twice. Back then, Shen Jingcheng was just a poor young man sent to the countryside for construction work, with a bleak future. But a few years later, he had become a section chief, his official career flourishing. While Xia Wenhua's family had fallen from grace after being reported, a few years after Shen Jingcheng rose to success, Gu Qianru divorced Xia Wenhua. After that, she would show up at the Shen family home every few days under the pretext of reminiscing about the past. She tearfully complained that Xia Wenhua treated her badly, that her parents-in-law made things difficult for her and never gave her a good face. She said she had suffered endless grievances in the Xia family, and that after finally waiting for them to go bankrupt, she promised to divorce and leave with nothing in hand before she got the chance to leave. She said that in this city, Shen Jingcheng was the only acquaintance she had left. Later, she again played the part of a frail, helpless woman, coaxing Shen Jingcheng into arranging a university job for her, funding her continued studies, and using his connections and financial resources to shield and support her. In this way, Gu Qianru had Shen Jingcheng completely wrapped around her finger. He had no idea that he was the very man she once despised and kicked aside without a second thought. My hand clenched and then relaxed again in the darkness, and my expression had already shifted from anger to a mocking smile. I won't tell Shen Jingcheng. Let him stay in the dark and experience once again the feeling of being toyed with by the one he loves. Once he discovers the truth himself, it's sure to be quite a spectacle. I know Gu Shiru won't be able to hold on much longer, because in my previous life, around this very time, Xia Wenhua would soon be transferred and rise all the way from the production brigade's deputy team leader to deputy director of the workshop. With a bright future ahead, Gu Qianru couldn't wait to lose her patience and marry him quickly, hoping to live a prosperous and happy life. But what I hadn't expected was that I had still underestimated Gu Qianru's shamelessness. Who would have thought that, unable to ruin someone else's innocence, she would take the risky route of ruining her own? After the rooster crowed at dawn, Gu Shaoqin hurriedly knocked on my door, tugging at me and saying, "Something terrible has happened. Come with me and take a look." I followed her for no reason at all and asked, "What happened?" Section Chief Xia drank with several directors yesterday to discuss some matters. When he came back, he took the wrong road and accidentally went into the wrong house. This morning, when he woke up, people found that he and Gu Qianru had slept in the same room. Before I could fully process all this information, I had arrived at Gu Qianru's residence and saw a crowd gathered there, even more than the day at the radio station. At this moment, Xia Wenhua was anxiously explaining to the crowd, "It was my drinking that caused the trouble. It really was because my room and Comrade Gu's room were too close together. It was dark and I couldn't see the road clearly, and she forgot to lock the door, so I accidentally went into the wrong place. I guarantee with my character that nothing happened between us. I just slept on the floor last night. Look at my back, it's covered in dust. How could that have been from a bed?" Gu Qianru was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Suddenly, she rushed toward the wall and shouted, "I don't want to live." Just as she was a hair's breadth from the wall, she was stopped by a sharp-eyed fellow villager. "Comrade Gu, what are you doing? Don't do anything rash when things are fine." Gu Qianru sobbed, saying, "I'm sorry to Jingcheng. How am I supposed to face people now? How can I still have the nerve to be his wife? Let go of me, I'm going to die." The village chief slapped his thigh and earnestly tried to stop her. "It's not that bad. Not that bad. Shen Jingcheng. Say something. Amid the crowd, the young man's tall figure swayed slightly. His face pale. Qianru, I don't blame you. This isn't your fault. I'll still marry you. But Gu Qianru wouldn't give in. She did not want such an outcome. I don't care. Anyway. So many people saw it. Me innocence is gone. I can't let you be wronged by marrying me. Rather than letting you marry me and have people point at your back and whisper, I'd rather die. With that, she tried to slam her head against the wall again. And after going back and forth like that, her forehead actually started bleeding. An older villager came forward to take charge of the situation. He said, with something like this, even if it was an accident, little Gu can't possibly marry Shen Jingcheng with a reputation like this anymore. If you ask me, the two of you are just not meant to be. It would be better to break off the engagement now. If Xia Wenhua is willing to take responsibility for little Gu, that wouldn't be a bad outcome at all. Xia Wenhua quickly replied. I'm willing. Of course I'm willing to take responsibility for Comrade Gu. Let's just treat it as making up for my mistake. I'll definitely treat her well. Gu Qianru was still crying pitifully, but she no longer acted as if she wanted to die. Everyone turned to look at Shen Jingcheng, waiting for him to give a nod. Shen Jingcheng looked at Gu Qianru, as if the moment he denied it, she would immediately go smash her head against a wall and hurt herself again. She kept insisting that it was for the sake of not having to bear the shame and criticism that she didn't want to marry him. But was that really the truth? Seeing that he said nothing, Gu Qianru cried out again, gathering all her strength to smash herself against the wall. Everyone scrambled to stop her. Comrade Shen, just agree to it. Are you really going to stand there and watch Comrade Gu die here? Exactly. She's already proving her resolve by risking her life. It's clear she's not fooling around with men and women. Just let her go. If she really ends up marrying you later, how will everyone see her? She'd be better off marrying team leader Xia Wenhua. Shen Jingcheng's handsome face had gone colorless. His gaze was bleak, filled with despair. Why, even after being given a second chance at life, was he still unable to end up together with Gu Qianru, under everyone's stormy and relentless persuasion? The young man finally nodded with great difficulty. Gu Qianru's heart instantly settled. She exchanged a glance with Xia Wenhua, and both of their eyes were full of triumph. After watching this grand drama, I was just about to head home, but suddenly Gu Shaoqin grabbed my wrist. She said loudly, Jimei, now that big brother Shen is all alone, you can finally pursue him. At once. A dozen pairs of eyes turned toward me. So that's it. I knew there had to be a reason Gu Shaoqin insisted on dragging me here to watch the show. She'd been waiting for me here all along. She was worried that after Shen Jingcheng broke off the engagement, he would keep pestering Gu Shiru. So in front of everyone, she blurted out the fact that I had a crush on Shen Jingcheng. Tying the two of us together, I flung her hand away forcefully and warned her, Gu Shaoqin, you can eat anything you want, but you can't just say anything you want. Gu Shaoqin raised her voice and shouted, how am I talking nonsense? Didn't you say before that you liked brother Shen, but didn't dare to pursue him because he already had a fiancé? You even wrote him love letters. I saw them myself. I let out 2 cold laughs. This time, it was my turn to grip her hand tightly. You said I wrote him love letters. Right. Fine. All of you come to my house and search it. If you can't find them, then you're slandering me, and I'll go to the town police and report you for ruining my reputation, under my firm insistence. Everyone went to my house again. In front of everyone, they turned the place upside down, but still couldn't find the love letter Gu Shaoqin had mentioned. Seeing that I was actually packing up and ready to drag her to the town to find the police, the village chief and several villagers hurriedly stopped me and forced Gu Shaoqin to apologize to me. Gu Shaoqin had no choice but to blush and say sorry to me more than a dozen times. I stopped what I was doing and said, since everyone is here today, and considering the last time I fell into the water and was falsely accused of having an inappropriate relationship with Comrade Shen, I still feel it's necessary to say something. With a look of complete innocence and a clear conscience, I declared, I, Ji Jimei, have absolutely no feelings for Shen Jingcheng. And I have never once thought of marrying him. If anyone dares to spread rumors about me and him again, I will definitely call the police and fight with my life to clear my name. I'll put my words here today. Even if I never marry in this lifetime and become a nun, I will not marry him. Otherwise, may I be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. In the crowd, Shen Jingqing's face turned pale as he looked at me in disbelief. He murmured, "How? How can you say something like that?" I couldn't be bothered to look at his pathetic life or death act, and after driving everyone out, I slammed the door shut with a bang. At last, the world was quiet again, perhaps because he had been dealt a blow. Shen Jingqing fell seriously ill for several days and didn't show up in the village for a long time. Instead, the village chief came looking for me again. "About the matter you mentioned last time, there's been some progress. The higher-up said your request is very unusual. But it's not impossible to arrange. It's just that if you want to leave here, you can only go to the northwest. There the sand and wind are fierce, and conditions are much harsher than here. You're a young woman. I'm afraid you won't be able to handle it." I nodded hurriedly. "Village chief, I'm willing to go. As long as I can leave here, anything is fine. In a few more years, the college entrance examination will be restored. And these educated youths will gradually return to the cities. Compared with that visible hope, what do these hardships and exhaustion amount to? Okay, pack your bags. Once the notice comes down, I'll arrange a car to take you away." On the eve of departure, I called Gu Xiaoqin out. Some debts are also due for settling now. When Gu Xiaoqin saw me, she shrank back fearfully. "What do you want me here for? I already apologized to you last time. What else do you want?" I smiled at her. "Xiaoqin, what are you talking about? I'm not that petty. I just saw that we drifted apart lately, and I wanted to make up with you. I specially went into town to buy you a pair of earrings as an apology. Come get them." I held up the earring in my hand, and sure enough, Gu Xiaoqin's eyes lit up. As soon as she came close to me, I kicked her straight into the river. I had wondered where that burst of force came from when I was being chased by the dog and got shoved into the river. So it turned out to be her doing. "Ji Wei, you're crazy. I'm going to tell the village head." I looked down at her from above as she flailed about in the water. "Go ahead. Anyway, I never formally went to the town to report you to the police last time. We might as well settle the old score together. No one saw me push you. But everyone in the village saw you falsely accuse me. Gu Xiaoqin, if you don't want people to know, then don't do it in the first place. I know exactly about those filthy things you and your cousin did. If you dare do anything to me again, I'll expose all of it and make sure she can't marry Xia Wenhua. I'll drag you down with me even if it means mutual destruction. Do you think I, Ji Jimei, am so easy to bully? If I don't show you some color, you've really started taking me for granted, haven't you?" Gu Xiaoqin trembled in the water. Only when she met my ice-cold gaze did she begin to feel fear. Only then did she realize that the water wasn't deep. Once she steadied herself, it only reached her chest. Although there was no longer any danger to her life, she still felt shaken and scared. "I was wrong. Jimei, please spare me. I definitely won't say anything about how you pushed me today. Please don't stop my cousin from marrying team leader Xia, or my dad will beat me to death." After returning home, I continued packing my luggage. There was nothing I could do to Gu Qianru right now. She had Xia Wenhua backing her up, and if I forced a confrontation, I would only end up on the losing side. But after she married into the Xie family, it wouldn't be long before the Xie family started making money through shady businesses. By then, I would definitely send in a report letter in time, shattering her dream of becoming a wealthy lady and then sending her plummeting from the clouds, miserable beyond life and death. The village chief said that at 3 in the afternoon, a car would be waiting for me in town, and I would have to go to the village entrance to catch the ox cart into town. By noon, I had packed everything and was ready to set off. Who would have thought that as soon as I opened the door, I would see Shen Jingqing standing at my doorstep. A serious illness had left him much thinner. It was obvious he looked haggard. Seeing my luggage, his pupils contracted. "Where are you going?" I immediately had a bad feeling. If I told the truth, I probably wouldn't be leaving so easily. After all, he never managed to marry Gu Qianru in this lifetime as he had wished. So it was very possible he would continue to take it out on me. How could he let me leave so easily? So I told a lie. An elder in my family is seriously ill, and I want to go home to visit my family for a while. I'll be back in a month. Shen Jingcheng let out a sigh of relief. Just moments ago, he suddenly realized that he could not accept Ji Jimei's departure. Thankfully, she was only going home to visit her family. After a moment of silence, Shen Jingcheng suddenly lowered his head and said gloomily, "I'm sorry. A while ago, I misunderstood you. You really didn't want to ruin my marriage to Gu Qianru. At the time, I spoke to you harshly, and even used force to drag you to the broadcasting station to explain. You must have hated me to death." Jimei, I cut him off impatiently. "What exactly are you trying to say? Shen Jingcheng, do you think I care about your apology? In this lifetime, all I want is to stay as far away from you as possible. I won't go out of my way to provoke you. So please don't come bothering me either. We each go our own way." Shen Jingcheng seemed to have suffered a tremendous blow, his body swaying unsteadily. "How can you be so heartless? We were husband and wife. After all, don't you feel even a little affection for me?" After saying that, he looked at me with a face full of hope. I looked at him and found it only amusing. He seemed to have forgotten how he had treated me before, and I didn't mind reminding him. "Affection? Did you ever show me even a shred of affection? Shen Jingcheng, have you forgotten how you used to humiliate me? You married me for the sake of your reputation, yet you never treated me properly. You kept me at home like a decorative object, cold and indifferent for 10 years. Have you ever thought that I'm a human being too, and that my heart can hurt as well? Have you forgotten how you once hurt me with such ugly words? You said I schemed and plotted to marry you, called me shameless, and compared me to Gu Qianru, saying I wasn't even worth one of her fingers. You belittled me to the dust. Did you ever think of the affection you speak of then? To get revenge on me, you gave the job that should have been mine to Gu Shiru, forcing me to go to an ordinary workshop to do hard labor. You were supposed to be my husband, yet you treated everyone else so well. Why didn't you talk to me about our relationship back then?" I spoke word by word, and tears fell without my realizing it. The grievances from those decades, even after being reborn, still could not be erased from my heart. But how could such pain ever be fully described in words? When Gu Qianru came to see you after the divorce. During that period I drafted the divorce agreement 3 times. But each time you rejected it on the grounds that you were in the middle of a promotion and feared it would affect your career. You didn't love me, yet you kept me trapped. Even though I once, by some twist of fate, broke up you and Gu Qianru, when I wanted to give you back your freedom, you wouldn't let me go. Shen Jingcheng, do you know how much I hate you? When I opened my mouth, I seemed to see again the woman from my previous life, wounded beyond repair by the coldness of marriage. 4 decades, I poured out my whole heart and still could not warm you. So I'm tired now, and I only want to take care of myself. You once said the thing you regretted most was saving me from the river. I want to say I do too. I regret ever liking you, regret having unrealistic fantasies about you, which led me to agree to your proposal in a daze, and then to give my whole heart for a lifetime to the wrong person. Luckily, we've both been reborn. So can we stop entangling each other from now on? Let's set each other free and live our own lives. With your qualifications, you'll definitely be able to find someone better in the future. And I'll stay far away from you too. We'll each marry whomever we marry, and have nothing to do with one another. Originally, I thought that by taking a step back, I could coexist peacefully with Shen Jingcheng, but he seemed to have been hexed. The young man shook his head, the corners of his eyes reddening. He looked at me guiltily and laid his feelings bare to me. "Jimei, whether you believe it or not, after living this life over again, it seems I can see my own heart more clearly. What I feel for Gu Qianru is merely an unfinished regret from my past life. The day she wanted to break off our engagement, I was only a little uncomfortable. But when I heard you cut ties with me and say that you'd rather become a nun than marry me, I felt as if I'd been stabbed by a knife. I know I did a lot of wrong things before and broke your heart. But it's okay. Since both of us have been reborn, I believe we can make up and reconcile again. This is heaven giving us a second chance. From now on, I'll treat you twice as well and make up for the mistakes of my past life. If you still blame me now, then let me pursue you all over again. Okay. Hearing these words, I really wanted to throw up, but I couldn't show it. I turned my head and pretended to think it over, saying, how do I know whether what you're saying is true? I need to think about it a little more. Shen Jingqing thought there was still room for things to change. And his eyes lit up. He immediately beamed with delight. Okay, feel free to test me. I have nothing but loyalty toward you. Jimei, let me walk you to the village entrance to catch the cart. You should come back early, or I'll miss you. He helped me carry my luggage and personally saw me onto the ox cart at the village entrance. After the bumpy cart set off, the young man stood where he was and waved at me. A smile lingered at the corners of his mouth, as if he were looking forward to my return not long after. I gave him one last smile. Shen Jingqing, in this lifetime, we will never meet again. Ji Jimei had deceived him. She never came back again. After anxiously waiting for a while, Shen Jingqing learned of her whereabouts from the village chief. It was as if he had been punched. He stood there stunned, too dazed to react. Ji Jimei, how could you be so heartless? We clearly agreed to start over. How could you? How could you just leave him behind and walk away like that? He knew he had hurt her many times, but why wouldn't she even give him a single chance to make up for it? Shen Jingqing did not want to give up. He wanted to wait until after he returned to the city, and once he had made something of himself, he would once again beg Ji Jimei for her forgiveness. But heaven did not go along with his wishes. Later, not long after Xie Wenhua and Gu Qianru got married, someone brought him down with a letter of report, and his whole family was implicated. All the evil things they had done were exposed in the sunlight in minute detail. Only then did Shen Jingqing learn that in order to dump him and cling to someone more powerful, Gu Qianru had actually played so many underhanded tricks behind his back. It was laughable that in his past life, he still clung to old feelings, willing to betray his own wife and yet protecting her all his life. He was truly the biggest joke. Later, no one knew where Xie Wenhua heard it from, but he found out that their family had been reported because Shen Jingqing had done it to avenge the loss of his wife. After he lost everything, he had nothing left to fear, and he led a group of people to beat Shen Jingqing so badly that he was crippled. He was disabled for life, and would never again be able to achieve the accomplishments he had in his previous life. Several years later, the utterly down and out Shen Jingqing saw news reports praising Ji Jiwei. After she went to the northwest for construction work that year, she kept studying diligently, going from university all the way to a doctorate. Together with her team, she turned a stretch of barren land into an oasis, giving the yellow sands a new color. Her contributions were remarkable, and the country awarded her a commendation. She truly lived out a new version of herself. While he was consigned to utter ruin, he glanced around the dozen-odd square-meter rented room. For the rest of his life, he could only drag this broken body along and slowly wait to die in a corner where no one could see him, never to see her again, even in life or death. Perhaps this was heaven's punishment for him. His rebirth was not to make up for regrets, but to witness with his own eyes how his wife, whom he had hurt in his past life, would break free from the mire and live anew, to live out the life that, in his previous life, should have belonged to her. The end.